Welcome back to another designing a tabletop sports game video. This is part 5, I believe. And in this game, we're going to walk through a little play testing. So I've been working a little bit on this new baseball game. It's sort of a loosely based on the game of Risk. So we have particular dice rolls that are sort of like Risk, and then kind of battles between the pitcher and the hitter, and then out of these battles, basically that determines who controls the at bat, and then who controls the at bat. Then we roll against like specific outcomes that are good for the pitcher, outcomes that are good for the batter. So you see, I've created a few more components here. I have the pitchers broken down as A, B, and C. The major thing I use to determine these are just some basic dice probabilities based off of the 11 to 66. There's 21 unequal possibilities here. So maybe in a future video, because I don't think I have that, maybe I can show you on the phone. But I have those probabilities actually laid out, and I'm going to have to redo these because I just sort of came across that yesterday and then laid out a little chart that shows you the percentage of 2, which there's about a almost 3% chance of rolling a number that equals 2 because there's only one of these out of these 21. That's the 1 1. So if you add those, it equals 2. There's only the same probability to roll a 12, something that equals 12. So out of all these dice rolls, there's only one that's going to give you 12. But for, let's say, sevens, which is the most common, it's about 16 something percent, 16 point something percent. And you have 3 opportunities for a 7, right? So you have a 1 and a 6, you have a 3 and a 4, and then you have, what's the other one? 3 and a 4 and a 2 and a 5, right? So those are like 3 opportunities for that. You also have 3 opportunities for rolling a one that equals either 6 or 8, and so 6, 7, and 8 are going to be or not multiples, but I don't know what you would call it. Rolls that equal 6, 7, or 8, excuse me, are going to be your most common rolls. So with that in mind, you want to try to create the probabilities. If you're trying to connect it to a league, especially, or to a particular season, you want to look at that season percentage. So how many strikeouts on average did a pitcher of this caliber have in that particular season or that decade, or you could even do for the history of baseball or whatever you want to do, or the history of the sport. So A pitchers are obviously top flight, top quality pitchers. B would be sort of everyone in the middle, and then C would be the pitchers at the bottom. My guess is that a B pitcher would be sort of everyone, everyone kind of down low at the bottom. I don't know. And then, I'm pitching with 2 A pitchers, so I'm just sort of keeping that on top. I don't really need that to be different every time. But I also have A, B, and C. And also, I created a D just in case a pitcher got a hit. So, or there was a start rating batters with a D. But here, same thing. So I have the same results, 11 through 66. And you just basically take, a roll like this would be a 23. A roll like this would be a 33. Okay, so you take the lowest number first, and then the next number, and then that will give you your roll. So you can see that there's quite a few singles here for A's, walks. This actually needs to be adjusted a little bit. As I looked at, say, Mike Trout's numbers from this year, he would definitely be an A. And I was looking at his single percentages should be more. His double percentages should be less. His hit by pitch percentages should be less. His home run percentage should be greater than just whatever it is here. So it's it's an interesting thing when you get into the mathematics of these. So there are 21 outcomes, but not every outcome is equal because some of them are doubles. Now, when you have a double, there's half the opportunity to roll it as a not double. So for a triple, for an 11, there's only about a what is it? It's a 2.75% or something like that, 2.8% chance of rolling an 11. There's about a 4.75% chance of rolling a 12. So your chance for rolling a double is roughly half of the chance to roll a not double. And so this is just sort of mathematical probabilities. If you look it up, that's what it comes down to. And you think about those things within the context of what you're doing. So if you're trying to match um, if you're trying to match sort of real baseball, triples come up about 1 to 1.5% of the time. So it doesn't matter really what era that you're talking about. I've done a lot of research over the years, and per era, per decade, it doesn't really matter. It comes out to about 1%. Doubles, people hit doubles in the range of 4 to 6%. They hit triples in the range of 1%. There's a lot of variability in walks and strikeouts between eras. So depending on what sort of era of baseball you're trying to replay or to redo, then that will sort of determine how you go with strikeouts and walks. Walks, not as much variability as strikeouts. Strikeouts seem to be a lot of difference between the way baseball used to be played and the way it's being played now. Strikeouts seem to be sort of at the heart of the difference of those things. So we have our A, B, C, and D. It's underneath there, but I don't even think I've used it yet. I have a game going between Arizona and New York. It is Doc Gooden pitching for the Mets and Randy Johnson pitching for Arizona. At this point, we got no score. There have not been any great scoring opportunities at this point. And what I've been doing is flirting, and really what I want to know about play testing these games is, one, does the key core of the game work? So we talked about that in the last video. The core part of the game has to work. So when you play, it has to come out with a baseball game. You got to be able to get to the end. Because I've gone through and sort of put ground outs and fly outs and pop outs and stuff like that, along with the strikeouts. Now I have a little bit more variety. So I have some fly outs and ground outs and pop outs and things like that. So there's a little bit more variety, a little more flavor, a little more detail to the game. You could also just as easily say out and not distinguish anything. So remember we talked about that in the second video, part 2. How much detail do you want? Do you want people to be able to choose to just say out, out, out? Or do you want to make that a part of the game where there's not as much detail in what kind of out? You've merely got an out or strikeout. Or do you want to go strikeout, fly out, ground out, and you don't want to mess with, like, how do you determine where the ball was caught? Some players want to know which player made the play. Some players don't want to know. They don't really care. They just know that it's a ground out. Know that if the more specific you get, the more realism you can bring into the game. The more details you can bring to other parts of the game, like double plays or errors, fielder's choice. Like, there are other different sort of details of the game that you can add in. And it's not just that you can add in, but once you have ground outs to shortstop, you have situations now on the base paths where there's a runner at first base, there's a grounder to shortstop, and then what are you going to do, right? How do you, is every ground out just lead runner out, or is it the trailing runner, the batter is out, and the lead runners are safe? That's not very realistic, and people are going to get a little frustrated with that because there's no way to turn a double play. And so double plays are a part of baseball. They're not a huge part, and they don't happen all the time. But when there's an opportunity to turn double play, or when there's an opportunity to turn a double play and it fails, that is a detail. That's a little wrinkle of baseball. So if you just have a ground out, there's not as much expectation of that kind of thing. You can sort of get away with less detail in the base running game, but every detail you add in the fielding game adds to more detail. It brings in more detail that you've then got to figure out. Every time you add in, think, okay, well, let's steal. And then for a lot of gamers, they're going to be like, well, is there a chance to pick them off? Or how does the stealing mechanism work? Can I get a lead? Are some players better than another? And so it just sort of opens a box when you say, okay, I want to add this sort of feature to the game and to have this kind of detail. And then it's not that you have to have the next detail, it's that the expectation from the gamer, especially because games on the market have a lot of detail. So they played those games and they'll be wondering why your game does not have that. Why does your detail stop? Why can't we go farther? Okay, if you have a good reason for stopping, then you should just leave it at that. But if you don't really have a good reason for stopping, people, gamers, are going to sort of be asking or pushing you to add more detail to the game. And the more detail you add, slower the game. The more detail you add, the more you have to sort of the put on the gamer to figure things out or adjust things, or there's just a lot more mechanical kind of things that have to happen. And some guys love, and ladies, they love to just get in and get that detail, and they'll spend the time to do it. And then some gamers don't. And so thinking a little bit more about your audience. Am I going for something quicker playing? Am I going for something more detailed? These are questions that you just have to answer all the time, and people are going to try to help you answer those questions, especially playtesters or anyone that you give the game to before it's created or released. And they're going to want to sort of push you in a direction or the other. So if you are going to push back against them, you better have a pretty good reason, because it's customary in baseball to be able to steal. It's customary to be able to turn a double play. So if you're going to buck against the norm of the game, whatever the game is, and you're going to say, okay, we don't have red cards, we don't have yellow cards in soccer. Well, why not? Right? Okay, so you're trying to sort of push against the system. You need to have a pretty good reason as to why not, because when those questions go unanswered and it's sort of unsatisfactory and it doesn't make sense, a lot of people are just going to say, well, that game doesn't make any sense. I'm going to go over to this other game that already just answers those questions and makes sense to me. So it's if you believe in it, stick to your guns. Otherwise, if you're just bucking against it because you don't want to do the work of creating detail or trying to figure that out, or you don't want to create sort of basic, intermediate, and advanced layers, a lot of people are going to look at your game and say, well, it's incomplete, it's not fully thought through, that type of thing. But if you believe in it and you can say, well, this is exactly why I don't want to go down that road, then I think people respect that. On base is like that for me. I leave a lot of base running and a lot of fielding to the imagination. And by imagination, I mean to the player, the gamer, not the player, the gamer. I leave a lot to the gamer. So there's still something there for you to sort of homebrew your way. Basically, I give you kind of a basic game, and then if you want that level of detail, you can add that in. That's a conscious choice and a conscious effort that I made early on, because a lot of gamers felt stuck in whatever game they were playing. It was like they went too deep. The game takes them too deep, and they don't like the decisions that they have to make or the mechanic that they have to use in order to do that game or to play that game. They would rather, maybe pull in a mechanic from a different game, which they do sometimes anyway. But my game just, it sort of keeps you at the surface. You have a core game that you can play if you don't want a lot of detail. But if you want to add detail, there's enough values, there's enough flexibility within the system of the game for you to bring in some of those details. And if you want to put a lot of detail in the fielding, but not so much in the base running, then you sort of have that ability to do that, or vice versa. Or, if you want to bring in weather variables, you can certainly do that in the game. So, all right, so that's a little bit about that. Let's do a little play testing for a moment. Let's see what time we got. I got to go pretty quick, but I just wanted to show you sort of the core game mechanics. And if you remember from the last video, it's a Risk style, so the game of Risk. It's a Risk style dice attack system. Later, I'm going to add in another layer that allows you to, let's say, when you have an inning with a strikeout, or an inning with an event, a home run, for instance, or something, then you're going to get a turn card, same as you do in Risk. So in Risk, if you win a battle, then you get a turn card. And so here, it's going to be based off of particular events that you can get a turn card, and then you collect your turn cards, and you can exchange those for more armies, more troops, is what you do in Risk. And in this game, you'll exchange them for skill cards. Skill cards are going to sort of level up or give you an extra opportunity or an extra advantage in a roll situation or attack situation for a particular amount of time. Could be an at-bat, could be an inning, but you can apply that card, that skill card, to a player in the game, or to a team. I guess I'm still trying to decide, how that all going to work. That's going to be an entirely separate part of the system that I've got to figure out, and it's got to work with the sort of core game here. And so, how does that work? And what I'm thinking now is, instead of 2 dice, when you have a pitcher advantage or a batter advantage, you would get an extra dice to add to your mix, so that you have 1 extra advantage. I'll cover that in just a minute about what the actual dice roll advantages are, which is another part of, I've already talked about it a little bit, but dice probabilities. If you're going to use dice or cards, you need to become pretty familiar with probabilities. If nothing, just looking online and saying, what's the probability of 2d10 dice hitting on whatever. So learning as much as you can about how probabilities work with these sort of chance mechanisms will help you to sort of shape or manipulate the possibilities one way or the other. Obviously, an A pitcher against a C batter, the A pitcher should have the advantage, and kind of a decided advantage, against lower, medium to poor batter, right? He should have a pretty sizable advantage. Not as much with a B batter, and with an A batter, there's still an advantage to the pitcher, but not nearly as much. And you could play it as equal, and I don't think anybody would argue about that, which is what we'll do. In our original rules, an A pitcher or an A batter has two dice, and sorry, plug that in, maybe it'll stay. So in the original game, as I wrote it, an A pitcher and an A batter has 2 dice, and anybody else just has 1 dice. So if you're a B or C pitcher, you have 1. If you're a B, C, or D, you have 2. Now, what I decided to do for a D is to give the pitcher one more dice. So, pitcher, he'll get. Hopefully, that'll just stay in there. If he's an A pitcher, he'll get a 3rd die. And if he's a B or C pitcher, then it'll be 2 against 1. And maybe it should just always be 3 against 1. I don't know. But you want to have a decided advantage against these guys, just to be able to keep that that probability way down. Okay, let's roll a few here, and then I'll talk about the probabilities of each of these rolls, and then how that works out. So we're at the top of the 7th, and it's going to be Doc Gooden, who's an A pitcher, and he's going against Arizona. Here is the Diamondbacks roster. You can see at 4 Ks in a row here into the second at-bats for everybody. The only hit of the game has come from Junior Spivey, and we have Quentin McCracken now. So we have 2 to the pitcher, and we have 1 to the hitter. We're going to sort of do the attacker first, and that's the pitcher. And so the way that we do this is we have 2-on-1, and so let's just roll this one. Okay, so here's the attacker, here's the defender, if you're thinking sort of in terms of risk. And what we do is we take the highest 2 dice, which is a 3 for the pitcher and a 5 for the batter. We're going to compare these two and see who won. So just like in risk, whenever, let's say this is our roll, so the batter clearly wins this battle. So we're going to remove the 1 for the pitcher, and then now we're left with 1 more roll. So we're going to roll for the pitcher. Pitcher rolls a 2, and then we're going to compare that with a 1. So this time the pitcher wins this battle, and so the pitcher eliminates the 1, and he's all that's left. So the pitcher wins that at-bat, and what that means is we are going to roll 2 D6s, and we have a 4-6, and we look on our chart for a pitcher A, and a 4-6 is going to be a ground out to the second baseman. So just like that, that's how the at-bat is resolved. Next batter is Luis Gonzalez. Gonzalez is an A, so we're going to bring him. So A pitchers and A batters get 2. So now our rolls are a little more even, 2 to 2. So we roll for the pitcher. So we have a 5 and a 2. We roll for the batter. We have a 4 and a 3. So in this one, this batter one is eliminated, but this pitcher one is eliminated. So we wind up with sort of a mano-a-mano 1-to-1. 4 is a good roll. 4 is tough. It takes a 5 or a 6 to beat a 4. And actually, it takes a 4, 5, or 6. So tie goes to the defense. Tie goes to the defending dice, which would be the batter. So in this one, the pitcher defeats the batter in that attack roll. And so it goes back to the pitcher. A 1-2 is going to be a fly out to left to 7. So 2 down, and Mark Grace is up. So it's another 2-to-1 battle because he's a C, and the pitcher is an A. So 3-2-1. And so in order for Grace to win this at bat, he's got to win 2 rolls. Okay, so it's a little bit of a disadvantage to the defender whenever there's a C batter, but that's kind of how it would be, right? I mean, an A to a C needs to have sort of a disadvantage. And not sort of, but kind of a lot. Let me roll 6. 6 was the only way. A 6 was the only way for him to win that. So that goes to the pitcher as well. And a 4-4 is going to be a pop out to the second baseman. So that's 3 up, 3 down for Doc Gooden against the Diamondbacks in the 7th inning. So this time it's going to be Randy Johnson. He's going to be facing off against the heart of the Mets order, but Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, and Darryl Strawberry, all A's. So it's all going to be a 2-to-2 roll. against Johnson, who is an A pitcher. So we roll first for the attacker, roll for the pitcher, and then for the batter. So we have a 4-3. So here, these two, not these two, these two. These two are eliminated, and we're left with the pitcher and the batter. And so the batter wins this one. And when the batter wins, we roll. And so that's going to be a 1-4. Hernandez is an A, so a 1-4 is going to be a single. So out of that roll, kind of thinking about this in combat terms or struggle terms, it's mano a mano, right? It's the pitcher against the batter. And we always hear that sort of term. And that was really the inspiration for, okay, well, are there military games? Are there mechanisms that we can use for a head-to-head matchup? A lot of games use they use a 50-50 system where these two are equal. These two are equal. An A hitter and an A pitcher are roughly equal, right? So there is an equality there, but can we also create inequalities based on an A pitcher against a C or a D batter? So that sort of led me down the path of, okay, well, risk is an interesting mechanism for two attack, like an attacker and a defender, which is kind of what we have here in sort of a high level sense. We have an attacker in the pitcher, and we have a defender in the batter. And so, can we use that language? Can we use that role language, if you want to say, and create a game out of it, and then also add in-game dynamic elements, which is what happens with risk. So as you win, you sort of begin to snowball your wins into more momentum in a certain way. Okay, runner first. Here's the pitch. It's going to be a 5 and a 4, and the batter is a 6 and a 5. And so here we see both of these are eliminated right off the bat. 6 and a 5 is a great roll. And this is Gary Carter. And let's see what Carter does. So run scoring opportunity, maybe. A 5 and a 6, another great roll. So a batter who's a 5 and a 6, and that's going to be a home run off of the A card. So that's going to be a 2-run shot for Gary Carter, and that's going to be our first runs of the game. As Hernandez comes around, and that's a big play in the game. And so you feel like, okay, there's some scoring, there's some, and one of the other games, let's see. I played both pitchers as a B, and it came out 8-4. I just played them as a B the entire game. So you can see here, they're being, they're zeros for a long time as A pitchers, but as a B pitcher, it's a little bit more close to the pack, right? Strawberry is up with 1 out, and it's a 5 and a 2 to the pitcher. For Strawberry, it's a 3 and a 1. So you can see that Strawberry loses both, right? So that's going to be to the pitcher. So just because the batter isn't a batter doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to go in his favor. So P pop out to 6, and that's going to be actually out number 1. So they don't have any outs in yet. So George Foster is a B, so it's a 2-on-1. So from the pitcher, it's a 6-3. Foster needs a 6 to stay in it, and he doesn't get it. And so that's going to be to the pitcher. And that'll be a 3-3, which is a ground out right back to the pitcher. So we go 1-3 on the put out. And that's the advantage of having, each of the players' positions in there, is that you get a little bit more detail in the game. So it's like a grounder back to the pitcher. It creates a little more narrative in the game. So, and we have the pitcher to the batter. Okay, so the batter wins that one. And remember, he's got to win 2 in order to win the roll. So it's sort of an uphill battle. Not impossible to beat a 5, but needs a 5 or 6. Doesn't get it. And so that's going to go to the pitcher. A 2-4 is a ground out to the second baseman. And that's the 3rd out of the inning. So the Mets do put 2 on the board against Randy Johnson. And I've also flirted around with some other ways to play. In fact, the first 6 innings of this game, I played this way. I played with 3 to an A pitcher, 2 to a B hitter, and then 1 to a C and a D. And the differentiation between a C and a D, so this would be a configuration for a C hitter 3 against 1. And then for a D, I would add even one more and go 4, 4 against 3. So you would have to literally beat the pitcher 4 times for a D batter. And I've had them come down to the final roll on those. And I've had some C batters win. Who is it? Wally Backman here got a single. So he beat the pitcher 3 times and got a single. Foster beat him twice. So it was a 3-2 roll, and George Foster won that roll. Santana is a C batter, and he won that roll as well. So it does happen, and you're not going to have a huge batting average from those guys, but that's kind of how it goes. You're not going to have a huge batting average. So let's do some rolls like that. Let's do an inning like that. And when you're doing this, you're sort of testing and trying things out, and maybe there's not enough advantage. It makes sense, right? ABC, 3, 2, 1. So a B pitcher would have 2, a C pitcher would have 1. So there's a little bit of symmetry, and it's kind of easy to remember with the dice. So if you ever get into the situation as a gamer and you're like, well, I don't remember exactly how many dice, and you go ABC, 3, 2, 1, and that makes it a little easier to see or to remember. So let's do 1 inning like this, and we have a B batter, so we get the 2 in here, and then an A will have 3. So any A gets 3, any B gets 2, any C gets 1. So that's sort of how I was thinking. I wasn't differentiating between pitcher and batter. So in this particular battle, it's going to be 3-2 because we have an A pitcher in Gooden. We have a B batter in Damian Miller, the catcher. Which this is going to take a little longer because you add an extra roll, right? So we have a 6 and a 1. And basically this one, we're not comparing anything. We're just comparing the top 2 because it's 2 against 2. So this one is a win, and this one is a win. So now we have 2 still left over for the pitcher, and then it's 2-1 for the batter. So 2 opportunities for the pitcher. And that high one is going to be a 6, and for the batter, it's a 4. So the batter does not win, the pitcher does, and we come in with a 4-5, which is going to be a strikeout of Damian Miller. So out number 1, but you can see that it's a little bit more, it's a few more rolls, so you just got to kind of, again, talking about detail, talking about, how long do you want things to take. So that's the pitcher roll, and then we have the batter roll here. So this is eliminated for the batter, but these 2 are eliminated for the pitcher, and now the advantage has flipped, right? Just like in Risk, sometimes you can flip that advantage. And so we have a 1 roll for the pitcher. That's a 2. That's a pretty good chance he's going to lose, but let's see. So it's a 4 against a 2. So the pitcher loses that battle, even though he had, it was an even advantage. And then a 4-6. Steve Finley is an A, so a 4-6 here is going to be a home run. So coming right back with a solo bomb is Arizona. And now we got another A in Junior Spivey, so another 3 against 3 roll battle. So we have a 3-1-1, and you can see he gets skunked. He loses all 3. The batter does. So we roll again for the pitcher. This would be a 4-5. That's going to be a strikeout. And that's out number 2. I don't know if you can see these very well because they're in pencil, but hopefully you can. Shine a little light on them. And then Craig Counsell is a C. So that means he only gets 1. So it's going to be 3 against 1. It's definitely an uphill battle for him. But look at this low roll. So we have a 3. So he only has to beat a 3, but he can't do that. So pitcher wins that battle. It's a 4-4. 4-4 is going to be a pop out to second baseman. And that's going to be all she wrote. But Arizona did get 1. And we head to the bottom of the 8th inning. And it's going to be Santana, Gooden, and Mookie Wilson. So a C, a D, and a B. So here's Randy Johnson on the bump. And it's only 1, right? So he's got to roll a 6 to stay in it, and he can't. So pitcher rolls a 4-4. That's going to be a pop out to the second baseman. And the next batter is Gooden. So we're going to try our 4 against 1. So we have 4 here. We take the highest one. And now Gooden has to face off against 4. That's going to be a 4 to a 1. So it's definitely a loss. And for Gooden, a 2-5 is going to be a ground out to the first baseman. So we go 3-1 on the put out. I believe that sharing is caring. And so we got that flip to the pitcher covering. And now we have a 3 against 2, right? So we have a B batter who gets 2. We have an A pitcher who gets 3. So for the pitcher, you're going to take the top 2. And for the batter, you're going to take his 2 rolls. So he loses both, right? So it's me, Mookie Wilson, with the pop out to the second baseman. And so even with all of these different outcomes here, you still have, a pop out to the second baseman happening probably too much. So maybe there will be a way to add more detail into that. Or if it's a 4-4, then, maybe that's something else. No, I don't know how you could add any more detail. Maybe create another chart with way more detail in it. I'm not sure. But Randy Johnson comes back with a shutdown inning. Let's go ahead and play out the rest of the game with this this three dice mechanism, because I really kind of like that, because it's easy to remember. A's get 3, B's get 2, C's get 1. It's easy for me to tell that to somebody. A's get 3, B's get 2, C's get 1. It creates a lot of advantage with an A over a C. It creates a little advantage, A over B. Creates very little advantage, if any at all, between an A and an A. So I feel like there's sort of a leveling out of the players at that point. Only issue is if we begin to add in extras, like extra advantages, skill cards, basically. How are we going to apply that advantage? Adding in 4 dice makes it very difficult. But if you're going against the heart of the order, like here, BAA or AAAB, if you're going against the heart of the order and you want to apply that advantage, now you get a 4, you get a 4-3 advantage 3 times. You get a 4-2 advantage here, which is really what you want to do when you're sort of leveling up or trying to bear down and get that extra advantage. So just things to think about. Those are in the future. Whenever I add in the skill cards, this might change, and we'll just have to see how that works. But right now, for basic gameplay, it works great. You can play the game just like this. You have appropriate advantage, which I'll show you in just a moment. But let's finish out this inning. So we got Randy Johnson, Womack, and Quentin McCracken against Doc Gooden. So we got our 4-1 advantage against Randy Johnson. It feels like an impossibility with the pitcher, which kind of is an impossibility with the pitcher, but he knocks out 1, and now it's 3-1 advantage. We got a 6. He needs a 6, doesn't get it. And so that's the advantage to the pitcher. And a 1-6 is going to be a ground out to the third baseman. So just get wood on it. and he grounds out to third. So it's going to be Tony Womack, leadoff hitter. And we'll take the top one because it's just a 1 for Womack. Womack loses that one. And it's going to be a 3-6. 3-6 is a ground out to the shortstop. So he slaps it the other way to be out number 2. At this point, I only have one error in the game, and one possibility we shouldn't have errors on the pitcher because that's a bad thing for the defense. So you do have one error chance here, and so it comes up rarely. And Quentin McCracken is a B. So we take our top 2. 6-5 is a great roll. 5-3 is not as good a roll, so he loses that. Johnson wins that battle. 4-6 is a ground out to the second baseman. So that's 3 up, 3 down for Randy Johnson, and I'm sorry, for Doc Gooden. And so we come to the we don't even need to play the bottom, right? So it's a 2-1 victory. And we can total it up. It's 1, 2. So only 2 hits, no errors for Arizona. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 hits. So in a game with Doc Gooden and Randy Johnson in their best years, maybe this is what you would expect, right? A 2-1 ball game, 7 hits total between them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 Ks for Doc Gooden. This one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 Ks for Randy Johnson, so not as many for him. But, relatively realistic sort of outcomes here. No walks. We had a lot more walks whenever the 2 teams, the 2 players were B pitchers. There were a lot more walks. That's going to be sort of a difference because these good batters are winning. I also played it differently where you had all of your good batters at the top of the lineup each time. There was a lot more runs being scored in that game. So this is just sort of play testing, trying out a few different things that you can do. And I just want to show this last part. I found this little dice roller that helps you to figure out all the different roll scenarios, and hopefully you can see that okay. All the different roll scenarios in a game of Risk. So you have a 3 against a 2, 3 against a 1, 2 against 2, 2 against 1, 1 for the attacker, 2 for the defender, and then a 1-1. So 1-1 in our game would be like a C pitcher against a C or D batter, right? Actually, it would be 2-on-1 if it was a C against a D batter. C pitcher, D batter, but a C against a C will be 1-1. A C pitcher against a B batter would be 1-2. And we actually would have a 1-3. You can't have that in Risk. You can only have 2 for the defender, which we're equating with the batter, right? But you can have a 2-2 if it's a B to a B. A 3 to a 1 would be an A against a C batter. 3 against 2 would be an A against a B batter. And then there is no 3-3 in Risk. So we have a 3-3, which is an A pitcher and an A batter. So not all of these probabilities are going to work out, but you can sort of see the advantage of a 3 to a 1. And you can see here that the attacker, the 3, is going to win 65, almost 66% of the time. And that's picking off 1. That's having 3 and then winning this roll here. Okay, so 65%, 66% of the time, the pitcher's going to win this roll, and then you would take that out. And then now you're down to a 2-1. Pick the right one. Now you're down to a 2-1. Did it right? Okay. And then now it's down to a 58 to 42% chance. Okay, so your odds are getting better as you win. your odds are getting better kind of as you go deeper in the count. So let's say they win this one, right? And so we pick another one off, and now we're down to a 1-to-1, and the odds of winning the 1-to-1 roll, all of a sudden they flip way into the favor of the defender, and that's a 58-41. So as you move, there's huge advantage here, 60, almost more than 2/3 advantage for a 3-to-1. Here it's about 56. What was it? 50, 57. So on a 2-to-1, the odds are 57, almost 58-42. So still pretty good odds for the attacker, for the pitcher. And then once you get here, the odds totally flip in the favor of the batter. Now, what if you have a 3-to-2? So the 3-to-2 odds still in favor of the attacker, but basically the same odds that you have for, basically the same odds as a 2-to-1. Oh, no, it's not. It just took a minute. So 37%, the attacker wins the 2 rolls. So now you're looking at 2 rolls, right? So it's a 3-to-2, but you're looking at comparing these 2 rolls. So 37% of the time, hopefully you can see that, 37% of the time, the attacker is going to win 2. 33% of the time, there's going to be a tie where there's 1 win each, right? So in this scenario here, we have this is a win for the pitcher. This is a win for the batter. Okay, so 33% of the time, almost 34, that's going to work. That's going to happen. So where you split it. And then 29% of the time, the defender is going to win 2. So you can see that the advantage is still clearly in the attacker side because they're either going to win 2 or 1, whatever that 70% of the time. Only 30% of the time is the defender going to take out 2. Okay, the batter. If let's say we do the split off, 1-to-1, and then all of a sudden we're back to our 2-to-1 odds. And our 2-to-1 battle is again 57-42. So you can see how manipulating and changing the dice is swaying or moving the at bat. And one of the things I really like about kind of the slowness of this battle, so to speak, is that it's building some tension in the at bat. So you got a guy, he's facing off against an A pitcher, and he's got a, insurmountable odds here where he's got to pick off 3. You pick out the first one, you're like, okay, and you pick out the second one, you're like, okay, all right. And then you get, let's say, a roll like a 2 on the last one. And now you're thinking, okay, this guy's got a shot at making a play. And once you get onto this card, there's a lot of good stuff that can happen on this card. Even here, there's a home run on 2. There's 2 chances for a home run. One is it's less because it's on a 55. So remember I talked about the percentages where this is half as probable as a 56, but you still wind up with like a 7-8% chance, to hit a home run once you get onto this card. Over here, it's a little different. You only have about a 2.5% chance for a home run, but you still have a lot of opportunities for a single or for a walk, even for a double. So once you get here, it builds a little tension. You're like, okay, we get that last roll, and you're like, whoa, hey, you got a hit, and it just sort of each win builds a little bit of tension in the at bat, just like you get down 0-2, and then there's a ball, and then another ball, and then a foul off, and then another ball, and now all of a sudden you've gone from 0-2 in the count to 3-2, and you're thinking this guy might get on base against the best pitcher in baseball. So it sort of builds a little bit of that tension into the game, especially if there are runners on base, which, throwing these A pitchers, they're going to shut everybody down for the most part. And that's going to have to be a very limited number of A pitchers. Same with A batters. They're going to win a lot of roles. Um, so we're going to have to limit the number of those. I have too many because I was judging them based on different sort of criteria, and I was judging them on the 2-to-1 kind of role. But if I was doing it with 3 roles for an A batter or pitcher, I would definitely make sure that number is more limited. Junior Spivey wouldn't be an A; he'd be a B. Gonzalez and Finley maybe from those years. Hernandez, Carter, and Strawberry probably from those years. But maybe Gary Carter wouldn't be, or Hernandez. One of them is not. Strawberry was the leader on the team that year in batting runs, so I'm not sure if that would work for the other 2 or not. But then you start to think about, okay, how do we evaluate, or how do we value these different players? How do we weight or give them grades or values? And that's a whole thing as well, maybe a different video. So hopefully you can see sort of the process of what I'm going through. You can see I'm creating, just thinking through the components. I need to go through and actually compare these against what I would be considering an A, B, or C batter, or D, and then making sure that I have sort of those percentages of hits. And basically what I'm doing is I'm taking every possibility here for, let's say, a Mike Trout, and I'm using Mike Trout as a model for all of my A hitters. So they're all going to have, similar possibilities as Mike Trout. And I would find sort of a meaty to upper level B, sort of mid-level to upper level B player, which would be, maybe a 10 batting runs player or something like that, who's right at that all-star level, but maybe not quite. And then I would look for someone in that area and then look at his statistics, what percentage of his hits were singles, what percentage, and not just hits, but it's singles plus doubles plus home runs plus triples plus walks plus hit by pitch. So you add all those together, you get a number, and then you start to find out how many singles out of that number, what percentage were singles, what percentage were triples, what percentage were hit by pitch, etc. And then you're just trying to match up those percentages as best you can, and to put those onto the card. It's not going to be 1-to-1 perfect because there's only 21 possibilities, and within those 21 possibilities, there are 6 that are only half of the possibility, like half of the chance of rolling it. So it's not even a true 1 out of 21. It's really a 1 out of 15, and then whatever's left over it's 1 out of whatever's left over. No, it's 1 out of 18, and then another sort of 1 out of 3 because there's 6, and each of those is half. So it's hard to explain, but that's kind of where the math comes out. All right. If you have any questions or comments on this, it's sort of rambly, but hopefully this is kind of what it's like to make a game with me. It's a little all over the place. I'm not very scientific all the time. I mean, especially when you get into this phase and you're testing, you're trying, you're pushing, you're pulling, and you're doing a few innings here, and how does that feel? And is it too many rolls? Is it too much going on the table? Too many things to remember. Hopefully with this, if you can use some consistency with your dice rolling system or with your card flipping system, it really helps. So there's consistency between pitching and batting now with the 3 for A's, 2 for B's, 1 for C. There's a lot of consistency with that, so that when these players come up, it becomes a little bit easier. Just, okay, this is an A, I'm pulling up 3 dice. It's a B, I'm going to have 2 dice, that sort of thing. And then playing it, because you want the mechanics to get out of the way at some point. You don't want them to be in the way of playing the game, but you want them to be able to be the thing that moves the game. But that part has to be as efficient and as complete as possible. So if it's complicated and convoluted and that's as efficient and complete as you can make it, then that's just what it is. If you don't like that, then you're going to have to find a new mechanism. If you don't mind it, then when people say, wow, that's really convoluted, and you say, I made it as efficient as I could make it in order to get the results they were trying to get. So this is the game, and it's moving along well. It feels a little bit like some of the other games that I made, but it also feels different because you get the tension of the attack rolls as you move through the at bat. And it's not so much tension when they're just blowing everybody away, but when you get a guy with 2 against 2, and you start getting people on base, like in this one, there's a lot of people on base. There's a lot of people scoring. There were 19 hits in the game. There was an error in the game. You're getting some crooked numbers up in here, but consistent scoring throughout the game. And that's because I was playing each of these 2 pitchers as a B instead of an A. So that was helpful to sort of increase the scoring, and it's good to know that I can get scoring like this when I have 2 A pitchers, and then I can get scoring like this when there are 2 B pitchers. That lets me know that there's enough difference between these sorts of pitchers to account for what's going on here. And then you're obviously facing a lineup where half the lineup is an A or B. So not every lineup is going to have that. Some lineups are only going to have 1 A batter. Obviously the Mets, that was a great team, 85, 86. And they had some great hitters. And same with the Diamondbacks. Half of their batters are A's or B's. So those are going to be your better teams. They should whip up on a B pitcher, right? Or an average pitcher. But against a great pitcher, they should be able to score, but they should struggle as well, which is what we have here. So we had an A batter who hit a home run off of an A pitcher. Same thing down here. So you get a bloop and a blast kind of thing, and sometimes that's just what it takes to beat a great pitcher. All right, that's it for me. I need to go, and hopefully you enjoyed this 5th part. Maybe next time we'll talk a little bit about these probabilities on here, and I'll show you maybe a before and after, and just roll through the percentages to let you see how changing these outcomes and where you put them, especially on an 11 to 66 sort of thing like this. This is what APBA uses. They use a sort of 11 to 66 roll. APBA baseball and APBA football, the different aspects of their games, they use this 11 to 66 roll. So, it'll give you sort of an idea of, how you get to those percentages, why particular things are in the space that they are, and a little behind the scenes on a game that lots of people play. All right. I think that's it for me. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the. If you haven't subscribed, click subscribe. Click on that bell icon and you'll be notified of new videos when I post them. I'm also posting announcements for these to the On Base Baseball Facebook group, which you can look up on Facebook. I'm posting them to the Delphi forum, so you can look me up there. I'm under On Base. And you can subscribe to the channel, and you'll just keep getting into your feed, your YouTube feed. You'll get new videos whenever they're posted into your subscriptions. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That really helps a lot. And it's super easy, just a way for you to support what I'm doing or my channel or my gaming, is for you to just click a thumbs up anytime you see one of my videos. Do that for anybody that you want to support. It's a super easy way, but it's more helpful than you know, because Google's algorithm likes to see those thumbs up and wants to show videos that people like to more people. So that's really helpful. Okay, I think that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.